Our story takes place in the 12th century before Christ's birth, when fierce northern tribes swept across the Peloponnese in waves. These were times of great upheaval, when ancient palaces of Mycenaean Greece fell one by one to ash, when old dynasties perished under the attacks of wild barbarians who knew neither writing nor arts, nor those refined customs that had been created in royal courts for centuries. Among these palaces, Pylos stood out, a mighty center on the western coast of the Peloponnese. Ruled by a wise king from an ancient family, here stood a magnificent palace with countless rooms, corridors, and courtyards, decorated with frescoes depicting the lives of gods and heroes. Here worked the finest craftsmen. Merchants from all over the Mediterranean traded their goods, and in a special house of tablets, clay documents were kept, proof of the kingdom's wealth and power. Setting out for the palace school of Pylos to learn as a scribe. If you enjoy this kind of content and want to hear more fascinating stories, make sure to subscribe and leave a like, but only if you're genuinely interested. Get ready for the story. And to those listening before bed, I already wish you sweet dreams. Regeko, son of a simple warrior from a mountain village, had no idea what writing was, or why it was needed. I was 15 then, born with a limp in my left leg. This defect made me unfit for military service, but opened the path to a different fate. I clearly remembered my father's farewell words, spoken on the day of my departure. We stood at the threshold of our modest house, built of stone and clay on a mountain slope. Olive groves stretched all around, and the sea gleamed blue in the distance. My father, a sturdy man with a gray beard and hands scarred from many battles, placed his palm on my shoulder. "Study well, Regeko," he said solemnly. "The gods cursed you with lameness, and you cannot serve them with a sword like your older brother Alcmaeon, nor can you hold spear and shield like me. But being a master of signs is no less profitable and honorable. Writing is great power. A warrior can defeat one enemy, but a scribe can preserve the memory of thousands of events for all time." My mother stood nearby, quietly weeping. She stroked my hair and whispered, "Come back to us, son. When you've learned, we'll be waiting." But I never returned, not because I didn't want to. Fate simply decided otherwise. The scribe school in Pylos was impressive in its grandeur. It was a separate building in the palace complex, with large, bright rooms where long wooden tables held baskets of clay, reed styluses for writing, and sample tablets with various texts. A special spirit reigned here, the spirit of knowledge and mystery. The teacher was an elderly man named Nesiadoros, a former chief scribe of the palace who, due to his age, had passed his duties to another but continued teaching the young. He had thin, long fingers stained with clay, and penetrating eyes that seemed to see through each student's soul. He wore a long tunic of fine fabric, and always spoke slowly, considering each word. Writing, he explained to us, is not simply drawing signs on clay. It's a way to make thought immortal. When a person speaks words, they vanish into the air, but when these words are written down, they can live longer than the one who wrote them. On the first day of learning, there were 7 of us newcomers, besides me. The sons of wealthy merchants studied here, one priest's son, and even a boy from the royal family, a distant relative of Pylos' ruler himself. At first they looked down on me, a simple warrior's son among sons of nobility, but soon it became clear that I had a special talent for writing. While others struggled to correctly draw the complex signs of linear script B, I easily remembered them and could reproduce them on the first try. My fingers seemed to know by themselves how to hold the reed, how to press on clay so the sign would come out clear and beautiful. "You have a scribe's hand," Nesiadoros told me one day, examining my work. "This is a rare gift. Treasure it." 3 years of learning flew by quickly. I mastered the art of reading and writing, learned to keep track of goods, record orders, and compile inventory lists. But I was most fascinated by stories about distant lands that sometimes reached us through merchants and sailors. When my studies ended, I, as the best student, was assigned as a scribe to the main house of tablets in the palace. This was both an honor and a curse, as I soon understood. The House of Tablets in Pylos was the heart of the kingdom's entire administrative system. It was a long, rectangular building with thick walls, where thousands of clay documents were kept in perfect order. Each tablet had its place, each record its purpose. Everything was recorded here, from the number of sheep in royal flocks to the distribution of land plots, from lists of warriors to inventories of sacred objects in temples. My workplace was in one of the largest rooms, where coolness always reigned. Even on the hottest days, the smell of raw clay became familiar to me. I spent here from early morning to late evening, and sometimes all night. I knead clay in my palms so it doesn't have time to harden. Shape tablets. Record on them everything that comes from people working the royal fields, from shepherds shearing sheep in mountain pastures, from sailors bringing overseas goods. Then I carefully dry the tablets, place them in woven baskets, and tightly cover them with linen cloth so no stranger can open them without permission. This work was important but monotonous. Day after day I recorded numbers. How many measures of barley were gathered from such and such field? How many amphoras of olive oil came from such and such producer? How many bronze items were sent to such and such city? My hands moved automatically, while my thoughts often wandered far from these dry calculations. But from my work I get neither profit nor special respect. On the contrary, my position resembles that of a skilled slave. Fearing that I might tell someone the secrets of the royal economy or reveal the real state of affairs in the kingdom, I'm not allowed to leave my workplace day or night. I sleep right here on a cot in the corner of the room. Eat simple food brought by servants. Besides this, I also have an overseer. His name is Timakos, a short, stocky man, about 40 years old, with a broad face and small, cunning eyes. He understands nothing about writing, can neither read nor write, but watches me carefully all the time. He has one purpose: to make sure I do nothing improper and don't record what shouldn't be recorded. Timakos had a terrible history. He used to oversee duelos, prisoners of war, used for the hardest labor. These unfortunate people turned into slaves, dug canals, built fortifications, performed work that free citizens weren't sent to do. The scar on Timakos' right cheek is from a pickaxe blow dealt by one of the duelos during a revolt. The revolt was brutally crushed, all participants executed, and Timakos remained alive and even got promoted for his loyalty. Dueros aren't people, he would sometimes tell me, rubbing his scar. They're two-legged animals that must be kept in strict control, otherwise they'll tear your throat out. When Timakos, after drinking from his wine amphora, which he did regularly, especially after lunch, would start nodding off, I got the chance to exchange a few words with sailors who brought ivory, dark-skinned slaves, and other overseas goods to the palace. From these sea wanderers I learned about the real world, the vast and amazing world that lay beyond Pylos. From them I heard about Poseidon's ocean where wonderful creatures live, about storms that break mighty masts like reeds, about green islands in the swirling ocean where unknown fruits grow and sweet springs flow. I was especially fascinated by stories about half-gods, half-birds, sirens who lure sailors with their otherworldly song. Whoever listens to them forgets everything in the world. One old sailor with a leather dark face told me. He sits on the shore and listens until he dies of hunger, but their song is so beautiful that death seems sweet. Or stories about the Blessed Isles, mysterious lands far in the ocean, where heroes and righteous people live after death. There it's always spring. There they know no sickness or old age. There ambrosia flows instead of water, and trees bear golden apples. Can you get there while alive? I would ask. They say you can, the sailor would answer. But for that you need a pure heart and a brave soul, and you need to know the right path. One day, having no urgent work, I decided to record what I'd heard from the sailors on clay. This was an unexpected idea even for me. Instead of dry inventory lists, to create something living, something that would tell about the beauty and wonder of the world. On the left side of the tablet, I drew a steep-sided ship with a billowing sail, and on its prow, a person who raised his hands skyward in rapture. Perhaps this was a sailor who first saw the Blessed Isles, or perhaps one who heard the siren's song. Under the ship, I drew several wavy lines representing sea waves, and wrote 2 signs in our script, Po-tu, sea. The drawing came out lively and dynamic. The ship seemed to truly sail on waves, and wind seemed to fill its sail. I felt an unknown satisfaction, the joy of a creator who had made something beautiful with his own hands. But my excitement didn't last long. Timakos, who had been dozing at the table, suddenly woke up and saw what I was doing. His wine-reddened eyes flashed with anger. He instantly jumped up and tore the tablet from my hands. "Don't let me see this again, you fool!" he shouted, crushing my work in his broad palms. The clay crumbled and fell to the floor in small pieces. Writing's purpose is to calculate royal wealth, not record sailors' chatter. I wanted to object, to explain that sailor stories were interesting to all people, that written on clay, they would remain forever for future generations. From them, people would learn about the vast and still little-known world, about its beauty and wonder, not just about treasures belonging to one person, the king. I wanted to say that records about numbers of sheep and measures of barley were temporary, would disappear along with those who own them. But stories about great journeys, about sailors' courage, about wonders of distant countries, these were eternal, belonging to all humanity. But looking at Timakos' face, at his low, wrinkled forehead, at his bloodshot eyes, at the scar gleaming in the torchlight, I decided not to argue. He had power over me, and conflict with him could end very badly for me. "Forgive me, Timakos," I mumbled, bowing my head. "This won't happen again." He grumbled and threatened for a long time while I silently cleaned up the scattered clay pieces, thinking about how hard life is for one who wants to create beauty in a world where only practical benefit is valued. I was called Master of Signs only once. This happened a few days after that unpleasant incident with the tablet. Waiting for a moment, when Timakos wasn't in the storeroom, he had gone to report to the chief scribe about work progress. A youth about 18 years old rushed to me with burning eyes, looking like a madman. This was the son of one of the palace craftsmen, a boy I had seen several times in the palace courtyards. His name was Pylos. He was slender and handsome, with thick black hair and large dark eyes. Now these eyes burned with some unearthly fire. "Listen," he whispered, looking around and trembling with excitement. "I've fallen in love with a girl, but she won't even notice me. Bewitch her for me. I won't spare gold. How can this be done?" I interrupted him in surprise, setting down my reed. "Do I need to teach you?" the youth exclaimed impatiently. "You're a master of signs. Writing is magic. Immortalize Polina's name on a tablet and give it to me. When I place the tablet against her house, she'll surely love me." I laughed, not cruelly, but rather with pity for this naive boy. "You're very mistaken, Pylos," I explained patiently. "I know how to write the word honey. But does this make me taste sweetness in my mouth? There's nothing simpler than scratching 100 sheep on clay. But agree, it's better to have 1 live sheep in the pen than 100 written on clay." I showed him several tablets from the storage. "Look, here. It's recorded that we have 1,000 amphoras of wine. But if I want to drink, I need to go to the cellar and take a real amphora with real wine. Written amphoras won't quench my thirst." Pylos looked at me with disappointment. "You should know," I continued. "I'd rather sail the sea on a real ship than sit here seeing nothing of the world in the royal storeroom. Here." I took a fresh tablet and quickly drew on it the image of a ship, and the signs for ship and sea. What has changed in my life from this? Similarly, nothing will change when I write your Polina's name. Writing can preserve memory, can convey information, but it cannot change reality. If you want to win a girl's heart, do it with songs, gifts, and good deeds, not spells. Phaedro stood a bit longer, clearly not knowing what to say, then ran off, apparently understanding nothing. Youth is often blind to wisdom. But this incident made me think. People truly considered scribes, magicians, masters of mysterious powers. For most of the population, the ability to transform thoughts into signs seemed miraculous. Perhaps this was both writing's strength and its danger. Master of true magic means power over people's souls, and power always arouses both respect and hatred. That evening, when the city was preparing for the festival of Poseidon, I sat in my storeroom, preparing to record new goods from the morning market. On the table before me lay still damp tablets with yesterday's records. The smell of wet clay reminded me of my childhood home. In winter, when it rained, the roof of our modest house leaked, and the macaron smelled, just like now, of fresh, damp earth. This smell always brought nostalgia for childhood, for times when I was free and could run along mountain paths despite my lameness. It would be good to return home, see my dear parents, tell them about everything I had seen and learned in these years, and after properly saying goodbye to them, set out in search of the Blessed Isles. See with my own eyes all the wonders that sailors tell about. I imagine boarding a ship with high sides and white sails, sailing across the endless blue sea, enjoying the play of dolphins and the gleam of flying fish. I would see islands covered with unknown flowers, taste fruits sweeter than honey, drink water from springs that grant immortality. Maybe I would meet other seekers of truth and beauty there. Poets, sages, wanderers of the spirit. We would sit under trees with golden leaves and tell each other about wonderful countries, heroes' deeds, God's mysteries, and I would teach them the art of writing, while they would teach me songs and wisdom. I had already mentally transported myself to the Blessed Isles when suddenly the doors opened and Timocos appeared on the threshold. Usually at this hour he should have been fast asleep after another encounter with his amphora. But today something was wrong. He was pale as linen, and drops of sweat covered his low forehead. His hands trembled, and he kept looking around as if expecting someone to chase him. "What happened, Timocos?" I exclaimed, getting up. "Why do you look so terrible?" "If only I could save my head," he exclaimed, clutching his heart. "Did you anger the Lord of Pylos?" I guessed. "What are you talking about, fool?" he shouted. "Dorians have approached the city walls. Northern people in bear and wolf skins march with them. I had heard of a small tribe called Dorians. Merchants who traded with them called them savages and mocked their customs. They said the Dorians knew no writing, lived in simple huts, wore rough clothing of animal skins, but they were also feared. They were famous as cruel and tireless warriors. But how did our brave warriors let the Dorians reach our walls? I wondered. The royal army is scattered across the whole country, Timocos explained, wiping sweat from his forehead. Some units fight the Thebans in the east. Others guard trade routes in the north. Only the palace guard and city militia remain here. The barbarians have conquered the whole land. Pylos will fall any moment. You and I will become dueros. The word duero filled me with horror. I had written this word on clay countless times along with numbers indicating the count of these unfortunate prisoners. I had calculated how many measures of oats went to feed dueros, how many worked on road construction, how many died from exhaustion and disease. And I had seen dueros with my own eyes. Emaciated people with chains on their arms and legs, often with whip marks on their backs. I had heard terrible stories from sailors about how dueros were chained to oars on galleys, and when they died from beatings and hard labor, they were simply thrown overboard as fish food. Ordinary people after death leave tombs, monuments, memories of loved ones, but dueros leave nothing except dry records on clay, made by scribes like me. What should we do, Timocos? I cried in despair. You still ask? Run. Immediately. Every minute is precious. But you yourself, said Pylos, is surrounded by Dorians. How will we get out of the city? Timokos came closer and said in a lowered voice, "An underground passage leads from the palace beyond the walls. I oversaw the dueros who dug it 5 years ago. See this scar?" He touched the mark on his cheek with his finger. "This is from the pickaxe of a duro I beat. He wanted to escape through that passage, but I caught him. Then all the dueros who knew about the passage's existence were killed on the king's orders, while I was spared after swearing an oath of silence. But who needs this secret now? The ruler and his family have already left the fortress. Only you and I are still here." He came up close to me. "We'll follow the royal family. You'll help carry my things. You don't have any of your own, right?" Timokos was right. I truly had nothing of my own. The signs I had been taught to write had no weight, as I had previously thought. And besides, they belonged to the Lord of Pylos. He had paid for my education, fed me these years. Even the tunic on my shoulders also belonged to him, like all my possessions. "Of course, Timokos, I'll help you," I immediately responded. Within a few minutes we were walking in the darkness of the underground passage, constantly bumping into walls. Timokos's basket was so heavy, as if it were packed with fired clay tiles. But somehow I was certain these weren't tiles, but silver or gold. We regularly received precious ingots from craftsmen, jewelers, weaponsmiths, coin minters, and when I recorded their quantity on clay, other scribes were always called to check the accuracy of the count. These treasures were considered especially valuable. Of course, this gold and silver belonged to the ruler, but while saving his life, he didn't take them with him, and Timokos took advantage of this. Probably during his years as overseer, he had learned where the most valuable treasures were kept, and managed to take some before beginning his escape. Much time passed. It seemed to me we had been walking for hours, until a bright spot the size of a clay tablet appeared in the distance. We moved forward, and the spot approached, grew, and soon became as large as an amphora. And then, pushing aside green branches, we came outside. The bright sunlight blinded me. For a while I could see nothing. Only red and yellow spots swam before my eyes. But looking around and wiping my eyes, I saw a giant column of flame and smoke. Pylos was burning. My city where I had spent the best years of my life. The magnificent palace burned with all its treasures and beauty. Craft workshops, where miracle workers created, burned. The houses of wealthy citizens, temples of gods, warehouses of goods burned. My storeroom was burning too, and the house of tablets with all its priceless records. Thousands of clay documents that preserved memory of past centuries were turning to dust. The work of generations of scribes was perishing in flames. But along with the palace, my chains were also burning. From now on, I was free, and could decide my own fate. This thought suddenly illuminated me like lightning. I took the basket off my shoulder and set it on the ground. "Where are we going, Timokos?" I asked. "To the mountains," he responded, pointing to distant peaks. "The Dorians won't find us there. It will be hard at first, but then we'll find a village where we can settle. With my treasures we can buy a house, land, start a new life." I looked at him, at his greedy eyes, at hands tightly gripping the handles of the basket with stolen gold, and suddenly realized I didn't want such a life. "Go alone, Timokos," I said firmly. "I have nothing to do in the mountains." "What are you saying?" he exclaimed. "You're crazy. Where will you go? What will you do?" "I'll go to the sea and find sailors," I answered, feeling my heart fill with unknown determination. "They'll take me to the Blessed Isles." Without waiting for an answer, I turned right, toward where the sea sparkled and shimmered in the sun's rays. It was so close I could make out white wave crests and ship silhouettes near the shore. Timokos could have easily caught up with me. He was stronger and faster, despite my lameness, but he was afraid to leave his treasures unguarded. Greed proved stronger than the need for companionship. I hadn't gone 20 steps when I heard a desperate cry. "Don't leave me alone, Regeko! I saved your life. Without me, you'd be dead." I walked without looking back, Not because I was ungrateful. I truly was grateful to Timakos for the rescue. But I didn't trust him as a person. One who takes what isn't his cannot be a true friend. Besides, he would certainly get rid of me when I became unnecessary to him. Exactly as was done with the duelos, who knew the secret of the underground passage. I also want to go to sea, Regeko, Timakos shouted. Take me with you. I'll share my treasures. But I didn't stop. Sailors had told me that on the Blessed Isles live unselfish people who know neither greed nor envy. What would they need Timakos with his gold and silver ingots for? Let him remain in this world of greed and profit, while I try to find another world. There, on distant islands, I would teach the inhabitants the art of writing, if they didn't already know it, and together we would record on clay not lists of goods and profit calculations, but ancient tales and songs born of the world's beauty and age's wisdom, not the low passions of mortals. We would create a true treasury of the human spirit, an archive where the most beautiful thoughts, noblest feelings, and highest aspirations would be preserved, and future generations could read these records and become better, wiser, more noble. Regeko, Timakos frantically called somewhere behind. Come back. You'll get half. Even more. I quickened my steps. Now Timakos could no longer catch up with me. The distance between us increased with each minute. Ahead, around the road's bend, the sea waited. Endless, mysterious sea leading to the Blessed Isles. Ahead waited new life, free from chains and limitations. Ahead waited a dream that could finally become reality. I walked forward without looking back, and in my heart sang a song of hope. For a true master of signs is not one who counts others' treasures, but one who creates beauty and passes it to people. And it seemed to me that the gods were sending me this chance to start everything over, to become what I had always dreamed of being. The sea approached, and with it, approached my destiny. When I reached the seashore, the sun was already setting, painting the sky in red and gold tones. Waves quietly lapped the sandy shore, and seagulls circled over the water, making their harsh cries. By the water stood several fishing boats, and nearby was positioned a small merchant ship with high sides. Sailors were unloading cargo, preparing for the night's rest. I approached the oldest of them, a bearded man in a flowing cloak, who was obviously the captain. Where are you sailing, honored sir? I asked. East, to Crete, and from there to Egypt, he replied, sizing me up with his gaze. And who are you, young man? I'm a scribe from Pylos. The city was taken by Dorians, and I'm looking for a ship to take me far from here. A scribe? The captain said with surprise. That's a rare profession. Can you keep track of goods? I can, and I know several languages. Then it's agreed. I just need an assistant for keeping trade records. You get food and a place on the ship for free. Deal? Deal, I answered. But with one condition. Someday you'll help me reach the Blessed Isles. The captain laughed. The Blessed Isles? Boy, that's just a legend. Maybe, but I want to find out for myself. Good, he nodded. If such islands exist, I'll help you find them. But first, work with me for a few years. Gain experience. Thus began my new life. The life of a free man who chooses his own path. Perhaps I'll never find the Blessed Isles. Perhaps they truly exist only in legends. But that's not what matters. What matters is that I finally became a true master of signs. Not a slave counting others' treasures, but a free person who can record what he considers important. And the most important things in life are dreams and hope, love and beauty, courage and nobility. This is exactly what I will record on my tablets, wherever fate may take me.